How to memorize everything. You ever watch a film and you wonder how these people can just remember all of these things? Well, multiply that by like 10 when you're a comedian, okay? Because a comedian does not share a script with somebody else. There's no moments of action where they're running across a bridge and shooting at somebody out of an hour and a half film or something like that. The amount of memorization that a comedian does is pretty much like a single play. It's like a play on Broadway, but you do it all by yourself. And I feel like it's the highest level of memorization because there's nothing else like it that you do in front of an audience, right? Now, there's other things like being a doctor, medicine. That's a different kind of like memorization, right? But to be able to remember word for word and go through dialogue and act it out, that's a big difference. So here's how you do it. So, first off, and probably last off, but anyway, there was this one guy, Sanford Meisner, okay? And he was an acting instructor for some of the greats ever, okay? I'm not going to get into names. I'm just trying to keep it short, simple, and to the point, right? But the Meisner technique was basically one of this guy's many of several techniques that he used for memorization, but I'm really just going to talk about one for a moment because I feel like that's the one that's the best. In the Meisner technique, what you're essentially doing is when you're trying to memorize dialogue, okay, and I say dialogue, but don't get me wrong, you could do this for a test, or you could use it for literally everything, okay? Anything that's less than comedy or even above or whatever, the technique isn't going to be different, okay? But the technique is basically this. Once you start to learn your lines or whatever it is, information, in some sort of a memorized way, once you can actually kind of like say them to yourself, or even leading up to that, it's a lot harder if you do it leading up to that because you're about to incorporate another stage of difficulty. Now, imagine if you're like running on a track field, just straight, like 100 yards, okay? Now, imagine there was all sorts of obstacles in front of there, okay? The Meisner technique basically says that by giving yourself a task, a small task, while you're trying to memorize something, you're essentially forcing yourself to think harder because you're dealing with a direct action in front of you, such as taking a long ball of yarn and tying it into knots, and then another knot, and another knot, and another, and just keep going, right? And as you're saying that, you're saying your dialogue, your lines, memorizing whatever it is that you're supposed to be saying out loud. Because as you're consciously focusing on the task at hand, whatever this might be, doesn't have to be a ball of yarn, it could be anything, okay? You could do it while driving and this and that. You're basically still in the background trying to memorize this stuff. So you're giving your physical body an action. That's the key principle. Giving your physical body an action. It's a task. And the more difficult, or excuse me, the more complicated, the better, okay? But it has to be something you can actually do, not something you haven't done before. You know what I mean? You're not trying to learn a new skill. You're just trying to problem solve. You're trying to untangle this ball of yarn or tangle a ball of yarn, okay? Or do it while you're putting the dish. I do it a lot of times when I'm putting the dishes away, okay? But the key is giving yourself a external task that you're doing. The more difficult, the better. And you can do it for multiple different diverse tasks, but that essentially will help you to drill your conscious task, the actual main goal that you really want to have, which is memorizing information. As you're saying it out loud, you're drilling it past your consciousness, right, and into your subconscious. Okay, you're removing the thinking aspect of it, and you're essentially just drilling it to a subconscious level. So when you're on stage or you're talking, you're doing your speech or whatever it is, okay, you're no longer thinking about it. You're essentially on autopilot. You know, when sports players and stuff say that they hit a certain state to where they just felt like a lot of the guys when they have like the greatest games they've ever had or whatever in any sport, they say they don't even really remember it. You've also heard of the phrase "in the zone." This is what will put that level. Okay, it will put you in the zone, but you do it by getting your mind directly off every single letter, the word, what the letters look like, what the words look like. You go from removing it from the conscious level to drilling it to a subconscious level, okay? No different than when you're potentially driving a car and looking around for change on your floor. Maybe not the most safe task, right? But you're essentially driving, you're not thinking about it, just like you might not walk and think about it. Your mind says, okay, hey, I want to go down my staircase, and I'm looking for my pack of gum, whatever it is. You're all around the house, but you're not thinking about breathing. You're not thinking about walking, okay? You're just really searching for this one thing, but you're really doing tons and tons of other things. Now, what if you could actually take that subconscious level of knowledge, okay, and have it be refined in a skill? That is the brilliance of the Meisner technique. That is how you memorize absolutely and literally everything to an infinite degree. And the more you do it, okay, especially if you have a job that has to do with memorization, the faster you'll be able to memorize stuff. So you know how you go to the gym to work your muscles? This is a way of working your mind in a very particular way to where you're always learning how to remember more information, more and more and more and more and more, right? You ever seen those girls that they're like trying out for some sort of like a Broadway show, and they have to do certain steps, right? They could just watch the instructor say, hey, this is what we're going to do, left foot here, right foot there. And because they've been doing that for so long, it's like a language to them, okay? So they can memorize those. They just see a dance once, and they're like, okay, got it. So I just twist here on this last second minute of this complicated step pattern. Yeah, that's it. They're so used to just seeing the body movements and turning their body into a dancing language that they can do that. That's because they've memorized stuff with their body so many times. Well, what I'm referring to is no different, okay? It's just not dancing. I'm talking about specifically with dialogue, but it could be anything. So anything that you have to remember, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, an MMA fighter, it doesn't matter. If you give yourself something that you can do, preferably something that's not, preferably if the thing you're trying to memorize, okay, is not physical, because then you'll be doing the act. You will remember it without any reservation. It'll always be there for you, right? So if you're an MMA fighter and you want to learn how to punch a guy correctly or something like that, this is not going to work for you, okay? Because as you're trying to punch the guy, that is the action that you're doing. So you can't really place an action with an action. The whole point is to memorize something in your mind. But if the thing that you're physically doing is an action, okay, it's going to be a lot, like you're kind of defeating the whole purpose, right? Because you have to give yourself an action as the distraction, which means that what you're trying to memorize itself, therefore, could not be a physical action. It has to be dialogue or information of some intellect that you're trying to instill into your subconsciousness. So now on the physical side, there's different things that you could do for that, right? But that's not what the Meisner technique is. The Meisner technique was specifically designed, right? And I love it. I use it and I memorize everything, right? To get your lines down. There's different techniques and styles. You can try whatever you want. But if you really want to memorize something, if you really want to learn it, like another language or dialogue, or again, being a doctor or whatever, give yourself a task. Give yourself a task. It's simple, okay? And you can do many different things doing this exact concept, like doing the dishes or while you're driving, trying to say your doctor information out loud, okay? And then whenever you feel like you have to look back at your, maybe like a book or something like that to see what the information was again, as you're still trying to memorize it, as you're going through this process and period, okay, of learning, you're going to stop that task, look at it, and you're just going to continue, okay? And then you'll realize the more and more that you're trying to memorize this, the less you're actually, you're making it harder on yourself because you're doing something in front of you that you're looking at, you're trying to take apart while verbally saying something out loud, right? And the more that you memorize your information, the less you're going to have to look at that book or that text because you're adding layers of difficulty to it, right? So it's brilliant. I love it. It's amazing, and it works 100%. 100%. 200%, it'll always work. So that is how you memorize everything. That is a Meisner technique. If you want to try it out, please, by all means, give yourself just as an experiment. You could do, like I said, you could do it while driving or anything, but just get a shoelace and try to memorize material, but you're saying it out loud. Just take that long shoelace and just tie one knot and then tie another knot until you're tying the whole thing into a bunch of knots. And as you're doing that, be saying the thing that you're working on memorizing. Okay? It'll work. I'm telling you to work. And if, you get that done, then try untying it. Okay? It'll work. Y'all have the best day. Memorize everything. This is what I use as a comedian, and it is foolproof. This is Benja Welldone. Have a beautiful day. Check me out. Peace.